It's kind of a weird thing. I feel like I had like a midlife crisis when I was 14, and I thought about the idea, just the general idea of what if the earth didn't exist? What if everything that I know and love, people, everything that's ever happened just didn't exist? It just was darkness. And then I started to think about, well, I was like 14 years old at that time. I know how long that is. And then, so I have got like 5 more of those. And so I could kind of visualize the end of my life. That sometimes turns into being up for 24 hours at a time. There's been a couple stretches in my life where I've done 48s or 72. That happened all throughout high school. Like, they started throwing medications at me. It was clear that something wasn't right, but the depression medicines really just run me through the ringer. I probably took 8 different kinds. After about 4 years of them giving me all these medications for my depression and my ADHD, I just had enough. Like, I didn't like the way I felt. There were some of them that were much worse than others that kind of made the issues worse. And I kind of just took a leap of faith and said, I think I can do this on my own. It took me a couple years, and it was mainly after I stopped the medication to really let my body get back into its natural rhythms. And I learned a couple things about myself. I just learned that in the winter, it's going to get worse. You can expect it. It's never late. You're going to get more depressed during the winter. But I also learned, knowing that it's coming, you can get ready for that. I was an agnostic until I was about 18, and I say agnostic, but I think I was just really secular. I hadn't really thought about the whole God thing much. I guess by default I thought I was a Christian because I guess we're all Christians. There's the Jesus guy and the Santa Claus, and we celebrated Christmas, so I guess I'm a Christian. But it didn't mean anything to me. My sister was going to this youth group, and I heard these crazy things about this youth group. Like, they were doing like stuff with mud and running around and playing frisbee, and I'm like, you know what, that sounds kind of fun. I had a few friends who were in that youth group, and I don't even think anyone invited me. I said, okay, I'm going to go to that,
Me and Rob actually went to middle school together, and I knew of Rob. He was a grade above me. I think I always thought of him as like kind of alternative and gothic. And then once we got to high school, I thought of him the same way. He always kind of wore black or wore leather. Or, I figured I knew all about him, what he listened to. I figured, because I knew about Rob, I knew Rob. So I never really thought I'd hang out with him, and we had some overlapping friends. I think we maybe ran into each other like one time at a party. But I really got acquainted with Rob when someone says, hey, Rob Lehr is coming to the youth group or something. I think I just saw him in the parking lot or whatever. I'm like, well, that's weird.
I think I talked to him real briefly. It wasn't a great encounter, but I didn't know, but that conversation would change the rest of my life. That was right when I was graduating high school, and it was a high school youth groups, and so like I got to the end of that, and I was at that point where they should have told me to leave. Like, hey, you're like 18, you're going to turn 19 soon, we can't really have you come to the high school group. But the youth leader, I think he saw a need in me to be there. The fact that he let me stay and become a part of that community, even though I wasn't technically allowed to be there, I thought that was really special. And, I ended up making a full conversion, finding Jesus and all that stuff. And, I laugh about it now, but at the time it was a really big deal. Like, I ended up getting baptized about a year later, and I was really trying to believe as hard as I could. The next logical step is, okay, I'm in this high school youth group and I'm 19 years old. And so I don't know if they asked me or if I just kept showing up enough time and eventually someone's like, you're kind of an intern or you're going to be a youth leader now. Or I think I just slowly made that transition.
I just hung around kind of in the background for a while. I was, just out of high school, so I didn't want to like be back in the youth group yet. I didn't want to be that kid that couldn't leave the church youth group. But then I, approached them and was like, hey, I'd like to be involved, and by that time, Rob had already kind of been playing a volunteer/internship role. And so we started hanging out even more. And then Rob would like organize a bunch of activities. He would take the kids caving. He would take us paintballing. Rob would bring in Xbox and that kind of thing and get kids playing Halo. And so we decided, hey, I don't know whose idea it was, but like, let's make a video for this Halo tournament. That was the first video I ever made. I mean, I'd shot things before, but I never like shot something and edited it.
This video was just us running around the church throwing stuff and making sound effects by beating on metal things, and it was great. It was one of the happiest moments of that kind of era.
I think Rob was definitely a natural youth leader and leader. I mean, the thing about youth leadership is a lot of people do a lot of talking to people, but what Rob did was, let's play hard. Let's go out and do stuff first, and then I'll have a conversation with you later.
Although by far, meeting Dan at the youth group was like the most influential thing. Like, I also met David. For whatever reason, we just clicked. I was in the church for probably about 2.5 years. And then I realized I probably knew it the entire time. I just kind of didn't want to think about it. I was like, why are you doing this? What's really your motivations here? Well, I'm afraid of dying. And I guess we're all kind of afraid of dying, but me, I was really afraid of dying. So when someone told me there's a man in the sky and he's going to let you come to heaven and you're not going to die, it's like, for me, that is like the best thing you could have said to you. I mean, like, that fixed my problem. All I had to do was believe what they were selling.
I didn't really know kind of where he was at until I realized he was starting to kind of question and doubt his faith. And then he kind of started to step back, kind of not come as much as a youth leader. Kind of, he hung out with a few kids specifically. He spent a lot of time with a few guys camping and hiking and doing a lot of outdoorsy stuff and having an important relationship with them. But I think they all started to question their faith together. They became kind of this unit of doubters.
I realized that it doesn't matter how many people believe something, it doesn't make it true. And so it was that seed of doubt, that seed of, is this real? And the overwhelming answer of no, this is not.
I never felt like Rob like left the church. He didn't like say, hey, I'm leaving the church, but he like actually physically left the church because he went off to college.
So when I got down to school, I was right in the middle of figuring out what this stuff meant to me. And it was kind of right, the thesis statement of my life at that point. But I met some people who are just like, yeah, I don't believe in God, and kind of think the church is stupid. I'm just like, yeah, I guess I am kind of a little mad at the church. What I didn't like was the fact that the Christian message as a whole, you're all bad people. You're all bad, broken people, and without God, you're nothing. There was something innately wrong with that message from the beginning, and it took me a few years to really put my finger on it.
So he started to really become a staunch atheist and even a militant atheist, and which was kind of the exact opposite of what I was doing. I was getting more and more involved in the church, and I was leading Bible studies. I was believing. I was trying to go deeper into my faith. But we also started to really have a lot of deep conversations about kind of where our beliefs were heading.
I was actually able to make it through that winter without hitting the depression hard. I think I had a couple bad days, but everyone has a couple bad days. But since things were going so well, like, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, you're going to die. Yeah, you're going to get depressed. But right now you don't have to worry about it because life is good. I got a new girlfriend, and I was loving life. I didn't have time to be depressed because it was just all the time doing something. I think that was really good for me to always have people around. One night we just went up to Walmart and bought some Nerf guns, and it kind of turned into a thing. And then I bought like 8 Nerf guns, and there was a bunch of guys on my floor. And, I kind of provide all the Nerf guns for everyone. We just had a great time. We had so much fun. There was always people around. I'm kind of an insomniac, so anytime I wanted to do anything, I could walk out of my dorm room at 3 o'clock in the morning. There'd be a couple dudes just ready to do something. And the friend group that I had started to kind of fall apart. Everyone started dating each other, and then I was just really itching to get out of there. And so when I left the dorms, all that constant interaction just wasn't there anymore. And they got tossed into a box, and I just figured, I guess that time of my life is over again. Fast forward about a year, me and Dan kind of stayed friends even though I had left the church. We just kind of talked a little bit every once in a while. We'd kind of talk on the phone. And so we had already had that long distance friendship kind of thing going just from the 3 hours distance between our towns. And he went out to film school in California. And
I dated a couple girls. I'm like, man, if this doesn't work out with these girls, I'm moving to California, and it didn't.
I don't really know how I decided to go out and see him, but I had another buddy who had moved out there. And so I figured, okay, I got spring break. He's got spring break at the same time. It's $100 for a plane ticket. Why not just go out there? And so I went out, and it was a great experience. Like, I don't know if either one of us knew what we were in for, but
we hung out for a little bit. We went to the Price is Right, which was like hell. I mean, that thing, you wait like 8 hours in the heat just to like stand in this small little room and hear Bob Barker rip on people, So it's it wasn't the best of times. But then we drove out to Yosemite, and neither of us had been out there. And
when we got there in the dark, and so we're like, oh, cool, it's camping, We woke up in the morning, and there was just these mountains and waterfalls everywhere. Like, everywhere you looked, you could just close your eyes and spin in a circle, and there was something beautiful.
A place where you can imagine dreams start happening. And so we start hiking, we start going off the beaten path.
Yosemite, baby, me and Rob, 2007.
Just that same thing we brought to the movie, staying up all night, doing crazy stuff, breaking boundaries, just being like, dude, what about this? Yeah, let's do that. Just building on one another idea-wise.
And I just gotten this new camera because I'd like to take stills, but I'd never done video before. And so I just start taking these pictures, and I find the video function. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool waterfall, And we're getting as close as we can to the waterfalls. I don't know if it's safe. We kind of hopped a couple fences. There was some times where we should have died from hopping over fences.
Rob started just shooting stuff. I didn't even know sometimes. And there's shots of like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm filming, idiot. And I'm like, oh, like, well, you got a camera in your hand. I didn't know you were filming with it. So it was just great stuff. And I didn't realize how much he was getting and how many pictures he was getting. But he's always kind of been a documentarian. He's always documented his life for whatever reason. He just does it.
We just felt alive doing that and just working together. I really feel like the friendship, we were close before that, but that was the moment where I feel like we got We became really close friends.
And I tell him, hey, I went to Africa 2 years ago, Rob, and I'm thinking, like, I've always thought, man, film's cool. I should make this movie that kind of addresses that. All these people go to Africa, all these people see infomercials and never do anything about it. And I want to do it in a fun way. I want to do it in a crazy way, this and that. And I'm thinking about traveling. And
it was just very much on a whim. Like, hey, matter of fact, I'm going to film a movie on. Didn't even think I put that much thought into it. I just said, yeah, okay.
The next thing I knew, he was saying he wanted to go. And then I was like, is this a good idea? I don't know. At this point, we were believing totally different things. And he's always been a free spirit, and it's like, all right, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go, but then as we started to talk, it's like, well, no, this is great. This is, thinking story-wise, this is a great dynamic, kind of that conflict character, that guy who doesn't give a damn, who doesn't share my same beliefs, who kind of is like, I don't know if that's my job, but just wants to do an adventure and is crazy enough to do it. And I think being in Yosemite, doing that together, I was like, well, I think we can do this.
That initial conversation, it gave birth to something beautiful.
Then he put a video together. I don't even think I asked him or really cared that he was making a video, but he did, and it was pretty good. And I really liked the music and how he put it together, and he basically taught himself.
Of all the ups and the downs of is Give a Damn actually going to get made, right before we left, I went all in. I said, okay, I'm going to graduate college. I moved all my stuff back in with my dad in his basement. I had no home to come home to. And then it became, we're going to hitchhike to Africa. We're going to live on $1.25 a day when we go through the United States, Europe, and Africa. And it was just this big behemoth of we wanted to experience everything that we possibly could that has anything to do with poverty. It was terrifying. The idea of going on the trip when it was just in theory was pretty scary, but the thought of taking the first steps and embarking on this 6-month-long trip, I was so scared, but 1 foot at a time. We started walking, and once we started walking, it was okay.
So on the trip, there was kind of some dynamics there. David was up for everything, wanted to do all things, no matter how crazy they were. Rob was, everything brought up was a dumb idea initially and wasn't safe and we shouldn't do it. And he was anxious about all our decisions and wanted to do things really practically. And so I was in the middle and always constantly kind of like, all right, should we do something kind of crazy here? Or should we kind of be kind of safe with Rob? And
the trip in itself was extremely stressful. Like me and David, our friendship, when it was casual, was great. But when we were put together, spending 24 hours a day together, it really strained that friendship.
I think David's personality of just God's watching out with us, just go with the flow, was hard on Rob because he's like, no, we're the only people watching out for us.
There's this constant battle of, okay, I have to kind of say no to stuff and make sure we don't die. And David thinks Jesus is taking care of us, so he doesn't care if we die.
And so these two conflicting point of views were constantly butting heads. And I think I constantly saw it, and I just saw it Rob being kind of a tightwad and anal and a jerk a lot of times and just being way too worried about things he didn't need to worry about. But it wasn't until this moment in DC where I started realizing maybe it's something more. Maybe it's something more intense.
We were staying with some of Dan's relatives. And that was kind of the thing we were trying. I was like, well, if we were poor, we would probably try and sleep with some relatives. So one night we did some yard work and stuff to earn our keep there.
I had been in the basement on the phone for a couple hours, and me and Rob were sharing a room.
And so I go to bed. I'm in this bed. I'm in a very safe place. And all of a sudden I hear this door open, and I wake up, and I'm like half awake.
Like, as I bust in the room, Rob just starts breathing heavy, and he just, like, backs up against the wall like this. And he's like, I'm getting ready to fight. I'm just getting ready to leap off that bed and just take down whatever's there. And then Dan's like, it's fine, bro. I just start dying laughing. Like, because I think it's the funniest thing ever. I'm, like, not sensitive at all to this. And I'm like, I'm thinking it's dark, and he's freaking out and thinks I'm somebody else. But, I mean, he looked like a wild animal trapped in a corner ready to defend its life.
I thought about that the next day. It's like, there's something wrong. You're not supposed to react like that. Like, if everything was okay, like, you would not be freaking out that bad. And that was 7 days in the trip, and we still had theoretically 5 more months of the adventure left, and we hadn't even got to the bad part yet.
So in 2005, I went to this place called Kibera. It's the second largest slum in Africa. About 1 million people live within 2.5 square miles. Most people are living on $1 a day. It was the place that really impacted me and say, people have to know about this. And thus, once Rob got involved in Give a Damn and said, Rob needs to know about this. This changed my life. I want to know if this place, seeing this place and experiencing it will change Rob's life.
The first day, Dan took me to the slums that he had seen in 2005, and it was just an incredible experience to see. And I had heard lots of things. It's going to be really sad, and don't cry. It's going to stink. And I get there, and after a month of seeing the worst things I've ever seen from the ground up. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It was just functional. Like, people were there, people were happy. And just to see all the things that people built out of nothing. I don't think if you would have taken 5 years ago, Rob, and put him in that situation, you would have been like, oh, this is incredible. But even just seeing the way they built things really impacted later in my life.
So the next day, we just wanted to get an overhead footage of the slum. We wanted to show how vast it was. We wanted to add some dynamic footage to the film. So we're getting in the plane.
We're taking off, and it's like a roller coaster. And they'd taken the door off so we could get good shots. And that was terrifying in itself. But, you know, we did a couple passes around trying to get over to the slums. We saw some animals down. It was just the first wildlife we'd seen in Africa.
Both of us are just in the zone, and we're filming. We're not really worried about each other, worried about what's going on.
The pilot had told us he was going to do something that was going to enable us to get better shots. And I'm not a pilot, so I didn't know what he meant. But all of a sudden, we started to slow down, and we started to get lower and lower. And
almost like see people coming out of their little huts.
And then there's not a runway, and then I have that moment of something is wrong.
The pilot like jerks up on the plane once, jerks up twice, and now I'm just focused. I'm just like in that, you know? And then 2 power lines come into view. And I'm like, this is the end of my life. This is when I'm gonna die.
And we hit, and it was like the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life. It was like getting tackled by 7 dudes at the same time, banging up against stuff, and then it was silence.
I land upside down in a plane. I think I'm paralyzed. You know, say, hey, you know, someone's gonna come rescue me. I go unconscious.
I opened my eyes, and I realized I was upside down. There was blood pouring down my face. And then I was like, you're alive, you're alive, you're alive, go, 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 go. And I got out of the plane. It seemed like an hour that took me to get out, but I think it was 10 seconds. And I get out, and my immediate reaction was run as far and fast as you can. And I thought to myself, what you do right now matters. So I went back in. I didn't really have a choice. I was afraid because there was fire everywhere, but like there was no option.
But I wake up, I see Rob. I'm upside down, so I'm all disoriented. But I hear Rob, and I understand that he's no longer in the plane. And he's saying, you gotta get out. You gotta get out. The plane is on fire. The plane is on fire. I'm like, okay. In my mind, he got out. Maybe I can get out. I unhook my seatbelt, kind of hit the ground. Rob reaches for me, I grab his arm, and he pulls me out of the plane, and immediately I just sense pain all over my body, and I'm like, I have to find something to lean against.
The same thing went off in my head, like what you do right now matters.
I see him run into the plane once. I can't tell what he's doing. I know he's trying to help the pilots.
If you showed me a picture of a plane and said, which part did you go in, I couldn't tell you. But I remember seeing Ryan, and I went back in, and he's upside down, and blood's pouring down his face. I've relived this memory so many times in my head, I don't know what's real and what's fake anymore. But I think he was conscious, and I think I knew it was bad, and the fire was starting to come up, and I was just trying to get his seatbelt off with everything I had, because I knew if I can get his seatbelt on, I can grab him, I can pull him. And the fire just came up all around me, and I just grabbed through the fire and got his seatbelt off. And then my leg caught on fire, so I instinctually backed out of the plane, and I was intending on going back in and getting it out. But then somebody grabbed me, an African grabbed me and threw me in a car, and I'm just screaming like a kid being pulled away from something that they love. But I was just screaming, we have to go back, we have to go back. He's on fire, we have to go back.
I'm frozen in trauma, and Rob is frantically screaming, and he's like, we gotta go back, he was on fire, and he's looking at me, and he's looking out the window, and he's just moving all around, and he's like, and he's just like freaking out and just saying it over and over again, we gotta go back, he was on fire, we gotta go back. It was
awful. And the fact that I almost had him, and I couldn't save him, that's been a moment that has driven the rest of my life, especially because Ryan looks so much like David. Like in my memory, it's like I watched David die. And I found out later that he didn't die right away, that he was covered so badly in burns, but they were able to get him out. And he ended up passing away a week later. And that hit me so hard. And the fact that I only knew him for a couple hours, or not even a couple hours, a couple minutes, and that their loss of life, that they don't exist anymore, it's heart-wrenching, you know.
We got to the hospital. Rob got on the stretcher before I did, and just, you know, he was still flipping out. You know, I was in way more pain. I was quiet, but he was just emotionally all over the place.
And then they wheeled Dan inside, and they immediately put neck braces on both of us. And our insurance was this weird travel insurance. And after a couple minutes of being there, someone walks up and goes, "Yeah, we can't take your insurance. Just No insurance. And I'm American, and I know if you don't have insurance, you are screwed. My mind said, they're not going to be able to take care of Dan.
When anybody spends a little bit of time with Rob, they realize Rob can be incredibly selfless. It has a really good sense of what's important in the moment sometimes. When I can find myself focused on the wrong details, and Rob's like, no, this is the thing that matters right now.
I decided to take my neck brace off and take all the things they put on me, and these African nurses look at me like I'm absolutely insane. It's like, what is he doing? And so I take my stuff off, and I walk over to Dan, and I just pull out my phone, and I just start filming.
Like constant pain, just a good steady pain in my lower back. I don't want to move, and I can't stop thinking about it. But I think I'm going to be okay. And Rod tried to get the guy, but he didn't come out, and 2 people dragged us.
We talked, and for the next 12 hours, I refused medical care until Dan was okay. Like, they wanted to do MRIs and x-rays, and I said, not until Dan's taken care of. And eventually someone says, we're going to take care of your medical bills. And I said, okay, let's give me some pain medicine. I was okay, and I realized pretty soon that I wasn't really bad hurt. I had burns all over my body, nothing was broken, and it hadn't really set in that we had been in a plane crash. And so my mental stuff was kind of on deck. It was coming. I didn't know it yet, but it was coming. And then after 5 days of being in the hospital, I was like, I feel like a sick person. I feel like there's something wrong with me. And being in this building right now is making me worse, and it started to eat me. And I just said, I need to get off this continent right now. And so I did everything I could to go home. But the thought of getting on a plane after being in a plane crash was just so bad. Like, I looked into getting a boat and going home. And in the end, I just said, you have to be strong. And you're going to get on that plane, and this will be over with. And I thought I'd never fly again, but, you know, time heals a lot of things.
So after the plane crash, my recovery was 9 months. Lost 45 pounds. Never thought I would ever be normal again. Maybe half a person. And it's hard for half a person to finish a movie, to even have a desire to finish the movie when you're in and out of the hospital. So a lot of it was up in the air. I mean, it was my baby, so I wasn't ever going to give up on my baby. But there was questions like, will I ever be just healthy enough to make this movie? And if I ever get healthy enough and they figure out what's wrong with me, will this movie be any good?
I had a lot of issues with being afraid of dying before that, with all my depression and everything. But after the plane crash, when I almost actually died, there was a face to it. You could touch it. You could smell it. And it was something that I could no longer hide from. And for the next few months after that, I did anything I could to survive.
You're not allowed to live through a plane crash and quit. You know, other people said, you know, it's amazing you made it and amazing you didn't quit. It's like, when you've been through so much like that, you want the world to see it. You know, it's almost like you owe something to the world. You don't deserve, who are you to quit? This life isn't about you and about what you want and what you feel and what's easy. And if you just cop out when it gets hard, when you just say, oh, you know, I was sick, so I have a reason to get out of this movie.
We had some plane crash footage, and just seeing that over and over again and just forcing myself to just fight my fears. It almost set me free, and it wasn't quite the terrible experience anymore. It was almost like something had happened to you 5-10 years ago, but it was almost like talking about it happened to someone else, and so I just didn't give it that power anymore.
Originally, I think for my idea for the film was kind of a pretty simplistic idea, like take Rob to Africa, he sees hard stuff, he cries, you know, breaks his heart, decides I give a damn, goes and tries to change the world himself. At the time, it seemed great and dynamic, and I think maybe in some ways, if it would have happened all in a different way, it could still have been a good film. But I also think the film that we got, and just believing in God and believing God being like the great storyteller, I think he said, how crazy would it be that the atheist saves the Christian guy's life? You know, the guy who doesn't give a damn shows that he gives a damn, and he gives a damn about his friends. We finished the movie, or at least we think it's finished. We show it to people, different responses, it's good, bad, you know, we're kind of up in the air, like, is this movie any good? Because we've only shown it to friends and small groups, and we're like, here's our chance. We get the chance to premiere the film at the Tivoli, which is one of the nicest, biggest, coolest theaters in St. Louis.
We didn't know if anyone would show up. I knew my family would probably be there, and Dan's family and everybody. And we're setting up the t-shirt stuff and just getting ready for it all, and someone tells us go outside. And
I go outside, and there is just a line of people waiting to see our movie. The movie we've been working on for all these years. They want to see it. And they're not seeing it just because they want to see our friends. They are seeing it because they want to see this movie. they're excited about this story.
We snuck back in and everyone's kind of going and getting ready for the movie. And we just kind of go in the back and just watch.
I remember sitting in the back with Rob and watching the movie together, elbowing each other, looking like they like it. They love us. They really love us.
And that was just such a great experience just to hear them get all the jokes that we made and the intricacies of the plot lines. And they were just roaring, and me and Dan just kept looking at each other like, man, this happened. We did this.
And at the end, we go down to the front of the stage, and they introduce us, and here are the filmmakers.
And we walk down in front, and people start clapping. They start clapping. We're like, okay, they liked it. Cool, great. And then I see one person go up and two person go up.
And I look at Rob, I'm like, dude, they're giving us a standing ovation. And he just starts giggling and like laughing like a little kid. And it was our first like big official Q&A that just started this ride.
It didn't make everything that we went through worth it, but it was closure to a lot of things. And I feel like that started the next chapter of Give a Damn. I think part of my apprehension to having to talk about the movie and the events of it was having to relive that every time.
Whenever we go to see the movie, people are always like, oh, is that hard to watch again? It's like, if I decide to let it be hard, I can choose to let this crash sequence hit me and be real, or I can choose to just be the filmmaker.
Give a Damn is kind of like the worst vacation of your life that is caught on film. The idea of having to watch that over and over again, it was terrifying. Like I didn't know if I could do it.
I believe when hard things happen in your life, the people who maybe passed away or were also hurt, they don't want you to sit and wallow. They want you to take that pain and put it into action.
We started doing some college showings and some churches, and then before you knew it, I realized that my love for just being open about things and having those conversations in private life translated really well to doing that in a public setting. And I found out that that's what made me come alive. After 6 months of living with my dad and just being a zombie, I was finally ready to go back down to Springfield. That had become my home in college, and I intended to stay there.
I saw Rob probably 2 weeks after he came back to Springfield because he was just so holed up in his room that he didn't want to see anybody. It was like sitting next to an abused child, who was completely traumatized. Rob was a man who went to Africa afraid of death and came back from Africa completely terrified of death.
I have probably about 2,000 video games. Most of it's going to be regular NES, Super NES, basically the things from my childhood, but it expands into modern stuff too. I'd say my proudest achievement through older games is, I beat Contra 1 and 2 without dying.
Contra is a very hard Nintendo game. Contra, you get like 3 lives and 2 continues, and there's just bullets coming in everywhere, and it's a mess. And Rob, he can sit there and he'll probably go through a life or two.
I've heard some people describe the way I play video games as almost like autistic. I run as hard as I can and I try and get really good at them.
Rob plays Nintendo like some men play guitars. Like, it's just you should see, he has this thing on his hand. And when you see it, at first you think it's some sort of disgusting tumor. But it's actually this ball of muscle that he's built up over the A button. Rob would spend every day playing Modern Warfare and doing Xanax. And that was his entire life. He was dealing with his PTSD by basically locking into something that was taking every inch of his attention span and his motivation and pushing it into a digital realm. It was the ultimate form of escapism, the most damaging kind of escapism.
For me, with my anxiety, I need to be stimulated. And so when I'm playing a video game that's lots of stuff going on, I can focus on getting better. And then you add that to my raw talent that I have at video games. It's the perfect combination for me just losing my life into this obsession. And I knew it was a waste of time. I was playing 8 to 10 hours a day sometime, but at that point, it was all I had. I was just still in that rough time. And anytime my life was going bad, I always had video games to fall back on. And at first it was kind of like, okay, this is something to get your mind off it. And then it would just eat me. And I'd stop hanging out with my friends. And if I was dating someone at the time, they'd get pushed to the background. And all that mattered was getting those kills on there and just not thinking about things. And I realized it was a horrible thing and I was wasting my life.
I had a summer coming up and I was going to be free most of the summer.
Ryan was telling me, he's like, dude, you should just buy a house. Let's go buy a house. You got some cash saved up. Let's buy a house and fix up. I have no idea how to fix up a house. I used some sandpaper and screwdrivers and stuff when I used to break stuff when I was little. But I never put anything back together, and that was the problem. And he convinced me to do it. He says, this is a good idea. We can learn whatever we don't know, and I'll show you the rest of it.
Let's find a cheap, inexpensive house, throw some new floors on it, throw a coat of paint on the wall, we'll fix up the roof a little bit, and you call it a home.
I looked at a couple houses. I had a really good real estate agent that kind of like had been fixing up houses himself. And he said every house we go to, he'd be like, well, that's an issue. I wouldn't go for this one. And we finally ran into this one house. And he says, I think you can do this one. I think the price is right. And I feel like this is going to be a really good move. And so I took his word for it. And I bought the house.
So I'd been on a trip, and I was on my way back, and I had to cut through Springfield where Rob lives. And so I gave him a call. I said, hey, how's it going? He's like, well, I bought a house. You should come check it out. And I was like, okay, you bought a house. So I go over to this house, and I'm like, this is the house you bought? And I just start looking around, and just, it was nasty. Like, there was just, I thought the bathroom was nasty. The kitchen was just falling apart. We went down into the basement, and it just, like, had weird, creepy things down there, and it was wet in places. Honestly, it gave me the creeps. Like, I either thought, like, I was thinking all kinds of stuff. I was like, dude, I wouldn't buy this or move in here. He's like, oh, yeah, and I already bought it. And so I remember being very, very skeptical about this house that Rob bought and been like, I don't know if he can turn this thing around.
Me and Ryan embarked on this epic journey to just fix this house over the summer. And I remember the first day we went, I didn't know what to do. There was holes everywhere. There was, there's water damage in the kitchen. I had to rip out a 5-foot section just so it wouldn't be disgusting anymore. And I struggled for the first 2 months. Like, I'd kind of do a couple things, and I really rely on Ryan. And so anytime Ryan was over there, things were moving. Anytime I had to go over there by myself, it was really difficult for me to steer the Rob train in the productive direction, especially without the knowledge base yet.
Honestly, a lot of times I'd get off of work and I'd call him and I'd have to drag him over to the house because it's an insurmountable task to take a house from a bare bones, broken down, nothing to a good, working, solid, older, but very nice house.
I remember the moment in which I decided to just tackle things that I didn't know. Like, before that, I had been paying some of my friends to come over and paint and really relying on Ryan. But I was kind of running out of cash, and so, like, I wasn't a good painter, but I just went into a room and said, and I just painted, and I was like, oh, it wasn't so bad. And so I'm like, oh, it's going to get everywhere. I was like, what if it does? I put down a tarp or whatever and start painting. And then before you know it, I finished a room. And then I finished another room. And then I started moving on to the harder things that I had put off the entire time.
And through the course of one long, very hot, very dedicated summer, we spent every night there working on that house. And we got it done.
It was livable. It wasn't perfect, but I felt like I finished it. And it was all because Ryan kind of pushed me in that direction.
The thing about Rob is, of course, we're all an amalgamation of different personalities, but Rob, more than anyone I've ever met, changes himself completely about once every 6 months to a year. An incredible transformation of character. And I feel a wisening of character with age. I think everybody goes through that, but Rob, more than anyone I see, pursues it with an incredible passion.
While I was growing up, I think I had a similar experience regarding art, like most kids did. Like, you had the good art kids who could draw things, and it was like, their duck that they painted was really good. And me, like, my stuff always looked like crap. And so after I hit about maybe 2nd or 3rd grade where they stopped making you do stuff, I was like, okay, I'm not an art kid. I don't get this art thing, so that's not my thing. Because I just wasn't good at it. And then Ryan saw all the things that I was going through and was trying to plant some seeds that were, like, positive rather than modern warfare. And he put a paintbrush in my hand. The first time I'm like, I don't want to do it. And I think I fought him for a while. And then eventually I just painted something. I just had some watercolors and I did some stuff. And I don't even know if I painted a thing. But it was kind of fun. And I did it again and again and again and again. And that crazy Rob brain got the idea, we're painting now. We're going to be a painter. And I don't know what that means, but we're going to do it. I had no idea what would happen. Within 6 months of that, my whole house was covered in just everything. Like, there was murals on every wall. I was just painting. If there was a blank surface, I was going to put something on it. And a lot of that came from just my confidence in the building process in the house. I realized that, okay, anything I can do, I can reverse it. But I realized that there was just no rules anymore. And so people don't paint murals on their walls. Everyone wants white walls, or maybe if they're going crazy, they'll do a blue or a yellow or something.
I don't remember how it got brought up, but Rob mentioned that he had a box of Nerf guns at his dad's house, and I was like, dude, you should bring those down and we should play Nerf wars in your house.
And I think it took me 2 or 3 times of going back up to St. Louis over the course of 6 months, but eventually I brought back the Nerf guns.
There's a box of them, and there's probably 6 of them, and some of them are broken.
We start playing in the house, and we just kind of run around, shoot each other. Eventually we developed some games.
It got to the point where people started to want to come over just to play Nerf because they were having such a good time. So we started doing it about once a week. We'd sit there and have everyone come over who wanted to in our group of friends, and we'd all play Nerf in the house. So we start turning off the lights, and we start putting on music like you would if your mom wasn't home when you were a kid, you know?
And it was great for a while. Like, there's probably 2 months where I wanted to play every day, and the guys kind of compromised with me, Ryan and Kaylee and Justin. And we play a little bit, and then it got a little stale, so we started playing upstairs. And we took it as far as we possibly could. At one point in time, I knocked part of a wall out and had added an additional door, so we could have 2 fighting walkways that went the entire length of the house, and that bought us another few months. But it was inevitable that we were going to get tired of playing inside.
We played for a couple months, and we had fun. And for most of us, we got a little bored with it. But for Rob, it was the start of something.
I knew at that moment, we have to expand or this is going to die. And that scared me. In the front of my house, there is an apartment. I've just kind of sectioned off 300 square feet to kind of help pay utilities, a standard arrangement. There was this tenant who was living there who had this dog, and she was supposed to pick up all the crap in the backyard, the dog crap. Never did, and so for a long time, it was a minefield back there, and we just kind of stayed away from it. And then she left, and we were all glad that she left, and then I picked up all the dog crap. And then I realized, I just saw this space, and by that point, we had outgrown the inside Nerf course, and I was just staring at it. I'm like Nerf, we're tired of it inside. Why couldn't I just run around the backyard and shoot people? And then the idea goes crazy. I'm like, I could build some stuff. What could you build? Well, you could build cover. And then I started thinking about Cabrera and just all the crap that they build out of things they just found.
We started really expanding as much as we could. Eventually, that just wasn't enough, and we had to claim the yard. You know, it had to happen. We needed to expand. We had outgrown Rob's home, and we needed to take over his yard.
So one day, Rob calls me up, and he says, Ryan, I got an idea. He says, I want to build like 6 barricades in the backyard. We'll just put up just a few. I got scrap plywood. It'll be no big deal. And I say, Rob, you're a moron. I'll bring my screw gun.
And the next day, Ryan came over, and Justin and Kaylee, and we put up the first net around the yard. It was only like 4 feet high, but it reduced the amount of darts that went over. And we built 5 pieces of cover, and then we used the same guns that we were using inside, and we ran around the backyard, and everything was great. And I think Ryan thought we were done.
So I went along fine with the barricades. The barricades were great. You tell me we're putting up barricades, we're putting up barricades. Then Rob comes to me and he says, we're going to build towers. And I'm like, Rob.
And I think within like 2 or 3 days, I had built a building back there, and there was 3 times the amount of cover. And I kept running these ideas by Ryan because he was really my sounding board for a long time with a lot of things that I did. He's just like, no, we don't need that. It's cool, you know. I think he thought we'd play every month or 2, maybe once a year. Kind of it's an option for crap that we can do from time to time.
Somewhere in there, I got real busy. And it was still fun, but Rob took it to the next level.
Every day I wanted to play every week. And again, we were in the same situation where we were inside of, I am in love with this, and I am going to just ride this until I get bored or find something better. And things got out of control quickly.
He was working nonstop, pretty much full time on his backyard.
Me and Justin had been close prior to that because we just started hunting together, and I was kind of teaching him some things about that. I was like, hey, Justin, I kind of feel like building some weird stuff in the backyard. You want to?
This is his rebellion against the rest of the little houses that are all painted exactly the same and are all fenced exactly the same. And here's Thunderdome. Here's just one little speck of bright rebellion where we're saying, no, we're making a carnival, and we're going to have 30 guys fight in it.
And the first thing that we did was the sniper towers. I had some scraps, and I bought a little bit of lumber, and we built both the sniper towers in one day. At first, we just built 6 feet up platforms, and there was no railing on them, but that's all we could get done in one night. And we played a game like that where we would sit on top of it and kind of aim down, and Ryan was just like, they're not sniper towers if you can't stand on it. No one wants to sit there and not get shot.
But if you don't have cover up there, then it's more fun without the sniper to me.
Well, we don't have a shield up there now, so...
right, well, we can play without him. Like, I'm fine with it. So Ryan pretty much vetoes, like, we're not playing with sniper towers that you can't get shot in. And so we went up with it. And then there was railing on it. And then they turned into the towers from Lord of the Rings. Like, one's named Barad-dûr, one's named Isengard.
We painted everything, and we built up these structures. We built towers. We built drawbridges. This is on a smaller scale, but we're talking about walking in the footsteps of empires here. This is what men have been doing all throughout history. And fundamentally, we're simulating a military battle. It's funny that Rob was so into Call of Duty before he got into Nerf, because Call of Duty is simulating battle in a way that we can never do here, because they have modern weapons. They have squads of guys going after each other in an urban setting, and we're dealing with the backyard and Nerf guns. But when you're playing Call of Duty, you're sitting in front of a screen. You got your headset on, you've got your controller, and out here, you're running around, you know? You're moving, you're ducking behind cover, you're physically doing that. And it's not an adequate portrayal of warfare, certainly, but it's a game that's trying to simulate that on some level.
There's just panache and personality to everything out there. Nothing's just like, oh, that's a barricade and this is a barricade. This is the Fraggle barricade and this is Isengard. The fact that everything that I made, I could paint and make it become ours. I had some great people who wanted to paint stuff with me. They all put their hearts into it, and it was a physical representation of our friendship, and I really love that about it. And there would be days where Ryan would walk around the corner in the backyard, and I would be building this big thing. And it doesn't matter which big thing, because there was a lot of them. I built spectator stands so you could see what was going on the inside of the fence without going in. I cut a hole in the fence, and I put a slide so you could enter down into it. I kept running, and there was no rules anymore. There was no off limits for it. At this point in time, Ryan was just like, what is he doing? Oh my God. And I didn't care. I had Justin, we were building big stuff, and you could not stop the train. Everyone was kind of sick of playing Nerf, but I just had this vision. If I build something awesome, eventually people are going to come play with me. And I'm like on Facebook going, someone please play with me in this thing that I built. You know, it was a sad time, but I didn't let it deter me. I had this vision, and I was going to go until it was stale, just like Inside. But I had a lot more room to work out there. And then I go to this party, and I'm thinking, okay, this is up to you. If you build it, they will come, but you got to help this. So I load up a bag of 30 Nerf guns and go to this party. And I'm thinking, okay, if I have a bunch of Nerf guns, there's a bunch of college kids, someone's going to see Nerf gun and be like, Nerf guns, I like Nerf guns. And then I'll be like, hey, by the way, I have this crazy circus land in my backyard where we can shoot each other with these Nerf guns. And I figured I'd get a couple people, and that was my goal. This kid walks up to me. He's like, hey, are these your guns? I'm like, yeah, these are my guns. He's like, what about this one? Yeah. Could I buy it? I'm like, yeah, okay, like, how much you got?
We were the crazy Nerf guys, and we didn't expect to find anyone else who was like into that stuff. And so coming to that and seeing that, I was really surprised.
This is I got this gun through a friend of mine. It was an extremely rare gun. I've never seen another one like it. And as soon as it broke, I was actually pretty sad about it because I've had this thing forever. And then I had the opportunity to get another one.
I'd only seen that Nerf gun once before, and that was like with Dan, and he loved that gun. I actually texted him, your gun is here. And he was like, what? Really? I remember him texting me back, and he's like, get that gun for me. I don't care if you have to steal it. Get that gun.
And so I sell him the gun for $2. Because I didn't even really think too much about it. But later that night, I was kind of checking out the event page on Facebook. And some guy's like, hey, if you like Nerf guns, you should come out to our thing on Missouri State campus. We play Nerf. I'm like, you do what? You play Nerf on the Missouri State campus. Like, I graduated there 3 years ago. I was not aware of any groups.
LAS stands for Live Action Society. It's always been a group of just Nerf guns and people running around shooting each other. We get kind of a bad connotation sometimes because people think that we're actually into LARP, which is like hit points and lightning bolts and stuff. I always like to think of Live Action Society as the island of misfit toys. We're all a bunch of weird people in our own way as far as society is concerned, and we bond over that a whole lot.
So I go out there, I've got my modified guns and everything. I don't know what to expect. I'm a little afraid because it's a group of new people, but with my newfound confidence with Giving Am, I'm like, you can throw me in a room with 100 people and I'm gonna make some friends. Thunderdome, we had to like restrict the kind of guns you could use to single shots and revolvers and basically anything that took time to reload because you've got a small space to work with. And up there, they play on the football field. And the first game we played was Spartans, and there was like 30 people on each side, and the goal was to just everyone get ready and then just run at each other. I remember the first charge, I'm like, there's people with like melee weapons, these big foam swords, and we kind of use melee weapons, but it wasn't like these kids were into swords. And so this kid runs up to me. I got my Nerf gun. I'm shooting at him, trying to deke out of the way. And all of a sudden, he just whaps me right in the damn head with a sword. And I look at him and just like, I wanted to just jack him in the face. And I'm like, no, you've got your filter on. They're meeting your representative tonight. Don't be a douchebag. At first, I was like, this is really overly complicated. But, I wanted to play, so I learned it. I had told a couple of the guys that I met up there, the officers, the people who were in charge. I was like, hey, so I got this thing in my backyard. I got this Nerf course. And some were like, you got a what?
I remember talking to Cameron when he first met him, and he says that he's got this guy, and he's got all these Nerf guns, and he's got this Nerf course in his backyard. Now, I'm thinking, he's got a couple of 2x4s set up in the backyard. Big deal, whatever. But stories keep going on. I keep hearing more and more about him, and everyone's like going, oh, well, he's 30. And my first thought is, well, we've had people in the group that are a little older before, and a lot of times they're weird. So I'm like, I kind of wrote him off at first.
So I think a lot of people were skeptical, though, just like, there's no way no one's ever done this. It just doesn't happen, like, which is strange, too, to think about, like, I don't know, like, even as children, like, we all have that dream to, like playing with Nerf guns, you're like, one of these days I'm going to, like, make a giant Nerf course, and then it just, like, dies out.
I convinced a couple of them to come over, and so I hosted an event a couple days later, and, like, 6 of them showed up, and, like, I hadn't really talked to them a whole lot, but just, like, they gave me a chance.
And then I remember going for the first time and meeting him, and he was a great guy. He was regular. When I actually saw the course, my mind was blown. I was like, this guy put so much effort into it.
When I went through that Jurassic Park gate for the first time, the drawbridge, and like it just kind of blew my mind. Like my expectations were just blown out of the water. There was awesome just paint and colors everywhere, and sniper towers for people to go in, and just like awesome and unique pieces of cover.
It was like every dream me and my friends from high school had ever had, and it just all in one backyard. It was crazy.
After that first initial wave of like the 6 kids who came over, they told their friends and they told their friends, and that growth that I was just begging for, please come play this with me. It started, and it was like it caught on fire, and it just grew. Like,
well, when we play at LAS, it's more a lot of like football field stuff. So there's not a whole lot of cover there. It's playing in Thunderdome is a lot more intimate. You see people more. It's a lot more hectic. It's a lot more Halo style. Everybody's going everywhere and shooting everybody. The cover lends itself to Nerf a little bit more because the ranges are a little bit lower than if you're playing like airsoft or paintball or something.
Word about Thunderdome spread, and people were like, it's legit, you need to go. And I got to be friends with a lot of the officers, and I had people coming up to me and just be like, are you that Nerf guy who has that thing in your back? Yeah, you want to come play? Like, it's a very inclusive thing. Like, we want people to come play, and with that, I can't get anyone to play. Once there was that desire to join, I wanted to get as big as it possibly could,
This is my mom, and we're neighbors to Rob.
When I started seeing him building stuff in the backyard, first of all, I didn't know what he was building to start out with, because from the backyard, I can't see his backyard. When he started posting stuff on Facebook and, talking about, Thunderdome tonight, stuff like that, and it's like, okay, now we kind of get an idea what's going on.
My first thought when he started building it, I was like really curious, because like I would see it and I was like, what are they doing? Why are they painting stuff? And so whenever I'd walk home from school, I'd kind of like try to peek through the fence and try to see what they were doing. And I thought it was kind of weird at first, but then I was like, well, it's cool that they're expressing themselves through this, and I think it's really cool, and I hope one day I can go through and try it.
Never actually thought of calling the cops on him. Let's put it that way. One, it's fun. It's not harming anybody. It's not hurting anybody. People having a good time. It's a bunch of people getting together that seem to enjoy each other's company, and it's not really invasive at all to anybody as far as like, yeah, you can hear them, maybe a little bit of like hollering, screaming, and whatever going on back there. But to me, it sounds like people just having a good time. I would be more upset about somebody coming by with like a big bass in like kicker box in their car or something. That would drive me crazy. This doesn't drive me crazy. This is like really fun. It's interesting to watch too. It's just good entertainment.
Even with all the busyness of the Nerf and the building, I was currently touring Give a Damn around the country. We had probably, 15 to 20 showings in the fall, and so I was just non-stop busy. And every time we get up on stage, we'd ask kids 2 questions. What breaks your heart, and what makes you come alive? And then I started to really apply that to myself because things were changing. And I realized that my heart was for depressed college kids that were just like me, who were playing too many video games and maybe going through some similar rough patches in their life and not doing anything. And with the newfound happiness that I found in building and art and Nerf, I really wanted to share that with as many people as possible. So I realized that was what makes me come alive, is is all of the things that I was doing. At that point, like, the LAS officers, like, they knew who I was. I hadn't really, like, latched on to anybody yet, but they were inviting me into their stuff. And one day, this guy named Cameron, who is the logistics officer, who's in charge of building a lot of the stuff that they use, he posted this thing on Facebook. He's like, hey, it's a mod party. I'm like, I like to mod guns. And so I clicked going, and I show up, and it was a little awkward because I kind of knew the guy, but I was the only one who showed up for the first 4 hours. But, you know, I did something smart. I brought about 6 or 7 projects that I was already working on.
Rob ended up coming over, and we just kind of ended up sitting down and talking and just modifying Nerf guns. He kind of talked about the ins and outs of what he does and my preferences versus his preferences. My dad's an engineer and machinist, so I'm very much about the maximizing output and using exotic machinery to get the absolute best, most polished result. And Rob's more about functionality, so it was 2 very different paths to go down, but it's also 2 very legitimate paths, I think.
And we just immediately had this bond of, you actually do things, I actually do things.
It's nice to be hanging out modding with someone who has that different train of thought. You get a lot more ideas rolling, you get a lot more accomplished that way, I think.
After hanging out with Cameron a couple times, I realized that, all right, I like this guy a lot. If there's one person in LAS that I'm going to be good friends with, it's going to be him. And, you know, he started inviting me to more stuff. We started having better conversations, and just like any friendship, we just became better friends through that. So I got exactly what I wanted. We were playing a ton of Nerf. Like, I talked to the LAS officers, and they said, well, we could do Thunderdome like one week and then LAS the next week. And so we kind of switched our schedules, so it was kind of working together, but still officially not the same thing. The point of Thunderdome is to bring people, is to build this community and to bring new people into it. I think there's a tendency with some people to be like, all right, we've got this core group of people, and we have to keep it at that. But for me, like, the goal is to share this happiness, and to change the world in my small way, because this is the world that I have. I can create whatever I want in this backyard, and I want it to be a place where everyone is welcome. I think one of the great things about Thunderdome is we just have an excellent culture of gameplay out here. The most important rule is just don't be a douchebag. Like, we want you to play hard, but don't get hung up on whether you want or not. Like, it's going to be fun no matter what. If someone says they got you, they got you. You know, like, you know, if they do it a whole bunch of times, watch them and then be like, actually, dude, you didn't get me. But be cool about it, you know? We really try and stress, try not to hurt anybody. Sometimes you're just running real hard and you'll go around a corner and you'll just barrel into somebody. And as long as you have that, you weren't trying to do it, you weren't trying to be a bad person about it, it's probably going to be okay. Some of the games we play out in Thunderdome. One is our trademark game. It's called Multi-Medics. We created it by accident. Basically, you start out and everybody's a medic. You have 2 cards. If you get shot once, you go down and you look for one of your teammates to revive you. And they revive you either by tagging you or you look right at them and you shoot them. That's kind of like tossing a med pack to you. Get up, fight a little bit, you get shot again, you go down, get back up. After that, you're just a soldier, and so you have the freedom to just run forward. How you win that game is you either crush everyone or you slowly whittle down their medics until there's nobody left. Best part of Thunderdome, anybody can play. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or girl, if you're 18, if you're 65. Women of Thunderdome, what can I say about them? They're awesome. They kill the crap out of the boys. There's nothing that holds them back from being the best players out there. In fact, I think 2 or 3 of the ladies out there are just picked first almost every single time. They are a force to be reckoned with. They will run up straight the middle of the field and they will kill an entire team. And the guys are scared of them. It's just a great thing.
First time was a few months ago, and I didn't quite know what to expect. I've kind of heard of this place. Kind of sounded weird, but I thought I would check it out. I didn't really want to play, but I kind of played. I just hung back, didn't really do much, and like was always picked last and stuff because I was that new girl, and it was just so much fun by the end of the first night. Being a girl in Thunderdome is really fun. It's a lot of guys and there's a few girls, but like I feel like every girl who's here just kicks ass at everything. And I especially feel like one of the girls now that just like loves it and I'm good at what I'm doing and it just makes me feel so powerful. It's definitely made me want to change stuff with my time. In my free time, I used to just like lounge around my house, not really do much. But now it's just like if I have free time, I just want to do something. There's just something better to be doing with your free time than watching TV.
I came to Thunderdome right after I moved to Springfield, and I really didn't know anybody in town at all. I had just moved to college. It was my freshman year. And I got invited over here, and it was really awesome. And these were basically the first group of people like I really met and started hanging out with in Springfield. And then Rob has this really good way of giving people a lot of opportunities to express a lot of different talents and skills. So he's always making an effort to have people over to do things like mod guns or build pieces of cover or paint things. And so I've really appreciated being able to come over and paint whatever I want to, and it's been really positive. Actually, I'm bipolar, and one of the main ways which I deal with just coping with life is through doing things like painting, through just hanging out with people and having a relaxing time, through positive social interaction. And so it has been really helpful in those ways. The first few months that I played Nerf, I kind of hung out in the back, and I was normally a medic, and I was a lot more chill about it. And then, like, after I've been playing for a few months, like, I started getting a lot more aggressive and just charging all the time. Some of the women who play here are awesome. Like, I feel like when people tend not to play, they tend to be women most of the time, which is sad, but the women who actually play are really, really good at it. And I like playing with new people because they'll pick teams and they'll start with all the guys, like, and all the scary guys first and all the big guys, and the women will always be last. And as it kind of progresses through the night, like, women start getting, like, picked first and stuff like that too, and it's kind of cool.
As much as I love things like paintball, I get a little intimidated. You know, it can hurt. And so I was like, Nerf, this is going to be awesome. I just go shoot people with harmless foam darts. I thought it was going to be really exciting. Rob definitely pushed me to go in. He encourages everybody to play the first time, of course, that they're there. So I watched, I think, maybe 2 games, like a game and a half, and then I wasn't going to jump in, but they had an odd number, and so Rob was like, come on, Sarah, just come on, slide down. Went down the slide and just went ahead and jumped in. I was nervous. I definitely was nervous because I can't remember the last time I shot a Nerf gun. I'm not always particularly coordinated. I was kind of nervous of making a fool of myself in front of people I didn't know, since that was everybody. I was nervous because no one likes to look silly, and I was afraid that I was just going to, you know, like, stand out as being a bad player or, you know, like, fall on my face, which I actually did, and nobody laughed. People were like, you okay? I laughed. And that right there, actually, probably falling down made me feel more comfortable than anything else, just because it got that out of the way. Everybody was very friendly, very welcoming. Everybody was excited to introduce themselves. I often find when I go to a party, I'm introducing myself to people, and I feel like I'm pressing myself on others, you know, like trying to force friendships. And everybody was really open and introduced themselves to me, which I really liked. They were very good about explaining the rules to me, very patient and helping me learn about it. Nobody got frustrated with me. I think that was the big thing. That whole don't be a douchebag rule totally worked. People were very nice, even when I messed up or didn't know what I was doing. First of all, I've noticed that some of the girls who are nervous to jump in are afraid of getting sweaty and not looking pretty. And so I've made a point of coming over with no makeup on and hair up and not trying to look good, because it helps encourage my female friends to not worry about what they look like playing. It's kind of sad that that is such a thing that women are concerned about, because I think that once they jump in and start having fun, they're not worried about what they look like anymore.
That's awesome. Now tell me about how do the guys treat you here? Are they respectful, or are they douchebags, or is it kind of person to person, or what has been your experience with the males in Thunderdome?
The males in Thunderdome have been really great. You know, they nobody's been inappropriate. Every now and then there's a grope on the field when you go to tag somebody and you grab something inappropriate. That's probably the worst thing, and that's not even intentional. No, they've all been you know, total gentlemen. You know.
Tell me about your experience with, like, killing the guys out there, and your experience with maybe expectations that people have on the women out there. How have you seen the women treated as far as players, and maybe yourself treated? Just kind of expand on that a little bit, if you get my idea.
I haven't noticed a whole lot of differences. Rob makes a good point of when he's assigning team captains to assign, you know, women and men, all, you know, team captains similarly. I noticed the women like to snipe more. The men tend to charge more often. In terms of how they're treated, though, in the game, I can't really say that I notice anything different. Nobody, you know, says, well, I'm going to shoot the guy instead or the girl instead. I haven't seen any of that.
Got it. Do you think that having a penis makes you any better at Nerf?
Fuck no.
Repeat that. Repeat what I said and kind of just give me a statement about that.
Having a penis does not make you better at Nerf.
That's what I needed. Okay, we're actually running through this pretty quick, but I want to open it up to anything you want to talk about in it, like especially after you interview us. And I did Cherokee kind of talk to you beforehand and stuff.
No, not really. We just kind of went for it.
Cool.
I got shot a lot on camera. That's okay. I think something I'd really like to say about Thunderdome is that it came at a very opportune time in my life. I've had a really rough summer, and having Thunderdome to come to and kind of distract myself from that and get some physical activity, that's actually one of the things that really has drawn me to come back to Thunderdome more and more. I mean, the first time I came, I had not had any exercise. I was feeling pretty crummy all the time. Running around, I was so sore the next day, and I didn't even remember feeling tired from it at the time. Like, maybe tired like in a cardio sense, but my muscles felt fine. The next day, I had a hard time walking up steps, and it made me realize that I wanted to get more in shape, not for how I looked, not for anything like that, but so that I could play longer and not get so tired. And just that has kind of actually changed my exercising behaviors in the last couple months for something as, I guess, as frivolous as playing Nerf has been a better impetus for me to work out than worrying about my health or what I look like at all. I was more excited to come and play Thunderdome than I was to go on a date or to get a present or to talk to my family. I was just so excited. So I guess that's kind of why I'm here now, is because I just got so into it so quickly. I really enjoy it. I have to say, it's particularly gratifying to shoot Rob because he's kind of a monster on the field. You know, he's kind of intimidating. He's leaping over barriers. I mean, he's like Rambo meets Gazelle. So when I shoot him and he acknowledges it, it's like, yes, yes, I got one that counts.
After going to probably 4 Battle Royales, which was LAS's big event that happened every other Sunday, they do bigger events that are like week-long or 2 days long, basically 3 or 4 things during a semester that they put a lot of energy into and do like marketing on. And the first thing was called Humans vs. Zombies.
Humans vs. Zombies is a game we play on the Missouri State campus. It's basically however many people sign up, one of them is assigned as the original zombie, or the OZ, and that person has to tag with firm hand as many people as they can, and whoever they tag becomes zombies, and they can tag other people, so it's like an infection spreading. Humans can defend themselves with Nerf guns. The objective for the humans is to survive the week, do missions at night, and just survive the zombie apocalypse, get out of hell. And the mission for the zombies is simple: kill all the humans.
By that point, Rob was a regular, I think, and he jumped into it as much as he could. He was touring a lot, but he showed up when he could. He was a hoss. He really wanted to just dive into it and get as deep into it as he could.
The only problem is most of the fun that comes from HVZ is that walking to class every day and just kind of these constant battles, and you can't get tagged inside, so your goal is to get places. And I'm 30 and I live off campus, and so I was like, okay, I really want to give this a try. I want to really be into this. And I'd start on one end of it, and I just pushed straight through the middle of it. I remember the first time I did this, I was sitting in my car going, is this a good idea? Like, and if you're going to really have the humans versus zombies experience, you have to pretend like if you get tagged, you're actually dying and you have to fight for your life. And I think that dying matters. And at Battle Royale and at Thunderdome, like, it doesn't really matter. You get shot, and if someone says they got you, you're out and you round up and you set it up again and you're fine. But at HVZ, like, it's a big deal.
He went balls deep every day. A lot of us, especially the ones that lived on campus or close to campus, tried to avoid it a little bit and, play the edges of campus, make sure that we didn't get hit, because survival was it was very important to a lot of us. He was just like, you know what? If I die, I die. So he'd go through campus. He'd go alone if he had to. He'd do whatever it took to give him a fighting chance.
And so as soon as I get out of the car, I see one of the guys that I met at Battle Royale sneaking around, and he's got a buddy with him, and I'm just like, I got a 35-round drum, I'm ready to go. And so like I see them coming at me, and I set up a scenario. I got this building, and so basically I set up an ambush point for them. And so I get them out in the open, and I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? And they kind of try and work their way around, and one of them just sprints right at me, and I take him down, and the other one's trying to work his way around and take him down too. And I thought the greatest experience about that is it was business. They were trying to get me, and they had that evil look in their eyes like they were coming. As soon as I got them both, though, one of them was like, hey, how's it going, man? Good to see you. Hey, thanks for coming out. That's really cool you're kind of coming up here. And it was great because, once you get down, you got 15 minutes, and then it's just like you get to have that fun time. And so I did that every single day for the first 5 days. I just sprint through campus, and every once in a while I'd find a group of kids with the bandanas on stuck in a building, and I'd escort them. And at one point in time, there was like 30 zombies. I look behind me and like we knew where they were at, but they didn't know where we were. And all of a sudden they figured it out and they just start sprinting. And I got 2 kids with me and we're running into the dining hall. We get in there and we had to switch and find another door to get out of there. And I just sprint back to my car. And there's like, there's probably 200 people playing this game. But there's thousands of other kids on the campus just hanging out. And you just sprint by them with a Nerf gun, just looking like an asshole. And everyone's just like, is someone chasing you? Are you okay? Are you being raped? Like, there's nothing in your brain that knows how to handle that scenario unless you've done HVZ, and it's great. The first mission we went on, every night you have to go do a mission. So maybe you're kind of avoiding fighting people during the day and sneaking around, but every night all the humans got to get together and you got to complete a mission, and all the zombies are going to get together too.
When Rob first came into HVZ, I think I'd known him for like 2-3 weeks. I've met him like twice. I remember he was coming up and he was playing a game, or one of the missions with us, and everyone was kind of hectic. He started talking, he started telling people what to do, and usually when people do that, I wonder if they actually know what they're talking about, and a lot of times they don't. But for some reason when he was talking, I was just like, okay, I can trust this guy. He knows what he's doing.
We all worked together and we all got together in a circle and we pushed down this long walkway. Must have been 700 yards. Just pushed, fought people the entire time. And through that, I think a lot of the LAS guys saw that I can take care of myself, that I can make good plans, and that I'm trustworthy, that I can watch their back.
And sure enough, for the rest of the mission, he took care of everybody. He made sure everybody stayed alive. He did his thing. He knew what he was talking about. It's pretty awesome.
4th mission. There's so many zombies at this point. Like, Chad the OZ was just doing so good.
I think I have a good leadership style for it. I make people want to follow me instead of just barking orders at everybody. It's just really nice to see, in a weird way, your hard work paying off. That semester I had a really light class load, so I was able to just kind of stalk around campus all day and get tons of tags, and it just made me feel really good that I could start the plague to make the game more fun. During HVZ, Rob was quite a high priority target because he had a lot of firepower. Because of Thunderdome, it seemed like every mission the zombies would try to surround the humans, and Rob was always there pointing out the special zombies, pointing out how we were making a move, and he's foiling our plot almost, and he was really good at it. He's an absolutely fantastic human just because he saw what we were doing. He was good at kind of gauging what are they up to.
There was not a lot of us left as the humans, and so when we get to the meeting, Ninja Squad, which is kind of the elite guys, they're just like, we gotta go. There's no way we can complete this mission. We have to go. It's our only option.
Me and my friends have been playing this game for 4 years at this point. We've survived almost every single time, so I know when to cut and run and when it's okay to stay and fight. So we got to look at the zombie horde. We got to look at our objective and all that. And I was talking with a couple of the guys that have been playing forever, and we just realized we were screwed. There was no way we had to cut it, and I had to take care of these guys.
The horde that night had just record numbers show up. It was like ended up being, I think, about 77 zombies to about 17 humans. It was pretty disgusting numbers.
And I drove up there for this. These guys live on campus or just off campus. I'm like, I'm not running. And I gather everyone around and be like, hey guys, I'm staying. If anyone else wants to stay. And Ninja Squad looks at me like, are you crazy? There's no way we can do this. I'm like, it's not really about it. I want to play the game, And this comes from Thunderdome of, first and foremost, you have fun. And if you win because you ran, that ain't a way I want to win.
We all try to convince him not to, but he's like, no, I'm doing this. Like, if you guys want to run, that's fine. I'll hold them off, and then I'm going to try to complete the mission if I can. He had, like, 2 machine guns in both hands, and he had another across his back, and he had another across his back. So he was loaded for bear. He had a vest on with, like, mags and mags and mags and mags and mags. The guy must have had 300-plus rounds on him. He was a one-man army.
I kind of call for volunteers to stay behind with me, and I'm make it very clear we're not going to make it, but they know that. And so we're like, okay, what's the best thing that we could possibly do here? We're like, last stand. We're going to make a last stand. Where's the coolest place we can do it? 50-yard line of the football field.
The mission started. We all ran for our lives. That was terrifying just because the horde usually does a group roar together, right, to start the mission.
1, 2, 3, zombies! And you could hear it across the entire campus. It was just, you knew you were screwed. But I couldn't wait to face them all.
So as soon as that mission started, my goal as the OZ, as the person that the zombies were all listening to, was to just find the humans. I gotta know where they are. I gotta get my zombies over there. I gotta have them chase these guys.
And we sprinted to the middle of the football field. And I had a gun jam the night before, and so I brought like 3 of them. I had 2 mag strikes. I pulled them out. I laid them down in front of me. I pulled out my Rampage. I pulled out my Hailfire, and I just waited. And then the zombies run up, and it's clear they're looking for people. They're kind of split into two groups.
I was trying to find the humans, and I had heard rumors that the mission was called, the mission was over, they abandoned, and, you know, my zombies were getting really frustrated. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody yelling from the 50-yard line of the football field, and I look over, and Rob and Chase Thompson and a couple other people are standing in the middle of the football field, and they want to fight.
Zombies! And they just stop. And I yell, everyone else ran away, and we're here to fight. We ask that you let us walk away from this and go.
And, like, I looked at the zombies, and just the looks on their faces, they're like, is this really about to happen? This is going to be awesome.
All of a sudden, it was extremely clear that they weren't having any of it. They wanted to fight. And so, all of a sudden, I hear, ah! And this whole force of them is just charging at us.
All of the zombies just rushed in.
I get my rampage, and all of a sudden they're all moving up on me. And I pop 2 or 3 of them, just move, and backpedal, backpedal, backpedal. All of us are sticking together, and we're killing as many targets as we can, but there's just so many of them.
And everybody was back to back, 360 degrees, just like shooting everything. Everybody's face was just like constantly on zombies. It was beautiful.
And then the ones in the front all died. We must have killed 20 of them. There's just nothing we could do. There was just too many. And they start pinwheeling around us.
And it was perfect. It was like movie magic. A spiral of zombies came around the group.
And I drop a mag and try and shove another one in, and I start shooting. And then all of a sudden I get a hand on me, and I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. It was like, this is the best death ever. And then I told them all what happened, and they realized that these guys stayed so we could have this moment, so we could talk about this and enjoy it rather than running away.
They had to have killed at least 25 zombies in that charge. They had so much ammo, you know, they were mowing them down, but, you know, there were just too many. They just gave it their all, and in the end, they all died. But it was the most epic death you can have in Humans versus Zombies, you know, standing your ground like, no, I'm going to fight these zombies. It was a really inspiring way to go out.
Meanwhile, one of the 4 people who was out on the football field I was like, yeah, I'll stay and fight. But he thought we were going to like actually try and do the mission. He didn't know about the last stand. There was a doctor we were supposed to escort to someplace. And right when he saw all the zombies, when he saw 50, 60, who knows how many zombies, a lot of them, he's like, I'm out, see you guys. And so he grabs the doctor and starts taking him to the objective. And, you know, so there's only a few of us left and we make that last stand.
We start hearing reports of people that had actually stayed. And I thought they were dead, so I'm like, okay, who do we lose? Who was there? We lost all these people. We lost 5 people. Okay, great. Now we got to do this with the 6 people I got here. Then we get a phone call. We get a phone call that said the mission's been completed, and everyone's like, what?
What do you mean mission's been completed? Everyone ran away.
So then we start hearing all these people that are there and alive, and Rob had just like led this last stand and like murdered everything. I've seen people try this stuff before, and 10 times out of 10, they die. And that's it. And I couldn't even believe it. I think I hugged him for about 20 minutes afterwards. It was great.
Turns out the one guy who ran away finished the mission. He went to the objective by himself, and because we were the diversion, we weren't planning on to be in the diversion, it just turned out that way. He finished the mission.
Our reward for that night was some cure vials, so anyone killed that night could have been brought back. And so first person we called up was like, Rob, we got a cure vial. We're going to bring you back. I was like, no, man, I'm being a zombie now. I was like, what are you talking about, man? We need you. We literally need you. And he's like, I played my hardest. There's no way that I could redo that night. There's no way that I could have as epic of a night as I had that time. And I played as hard as I could as a human, and now I'm going to play as hard as I possibly can as a zombie.
One of the reasons why I stayed a zombie is because I wanted to experience that half of it. This was my first HVZ, and I wanted to experience as much of it as I possibly could. So I gave it to the 2 other guys. And I was just... The Ninja Squad was pissed at me for that. They were just like, you can't, you have to come back. We need you. We have like no people. I'm like, man, this is a game. Like, I ain't gonna do any better than this, you know? Night's over, and I'm just like, this has been the most epic experience of my life regarding Nerf. And I'm finally a zombie, and I can't wait to see that side of it, but it's you just died. Like, the thing that you were trying to not have happen has happened, and you realize it's not that bad.
The relief when you get tagged as a human that there's nothing more to protect anymore. You can just go crazy and just respawn is just one of the greatest feelings, you know. It's like a giant weight is lifted off your shoulder.
I become a zombie, and I get to finally meet the foe who I've been afraid of all week, Chad and his zombie horde. And because I had that stand, because I fought when no one else would fight, they welcomed me in. They're just like, that was awesome. And I made a bunch of good friends like that. I think that's when me and Chad really became friends, at just those conversations after HVZ, and he saw that I did that, you know?
I liked his role as a human, because a big part of the problem I feel with humans is that, you know, there's a lot of stress involved. Even if you're playing just a game, you know, you don't want to die. You just don't want to. That's if you're thinking about it, and as a human, that's just like, thinking about it is heartbreaking, even though it's awesome after. But so people kind of freak out, and they get really tense, and they start yelling at each other, and, you know, kind of a too many chiefs, not enough Indians sort of situation. But Rob, I felt like he took it exactly the right way. You know, he came to play. He came to do the objective. Our games, live action society games, get really intense. But his style of Thunderdome kind of translated to Humans vs. Zombies really, really well, in that he took it as what it's supposed to be, fun.
So after the positive experience I had with HVZ and all the friends I made in the LAS officers, they really welcomed me in with open arms. They really loved Thunderdome at that point. They knew that I had things to offer to the organization, and they let me be a low-level officer under Cameron, which was really cool because Cameron was one of my better friends there.
I am the logistics department in live action. I think we have the best job. We spend the dues money and build cool stuff. And after seeing Thunderdome and after knowing how much Rob knows about modifying, like, I really needed some extra hands and just some fresh ideas, and Rob knows how to do stuff for cheap, and Rob has a lot more build experience than I do, and it was kind of just a no-brainer. I need a little bit extra manpower, and Rob's always around. Rob's always willing to help.
I'm playing so much Nerf. I'm still building Thunderdome. Everything in my life is revolving around Nerf right now. I'm working, I'm doing some other things, but this is the focus. And I really wanted to share that experience with someone else, and I had become really good friends with Cameron, and he was at a pivotal point in his life where he was kind of like thinking about switching majors.
Coming down to Missouri State, I had an idea of what I wanted to be with my major, what I wanted to do with my life. After starting that pathway, realizing that this isn't what I want to do with my life, and struggling to find something new, realizing that it's going to be even longer and longer before I graduate, and just kind of feeling more and more like I'm spinning gears, and it's going to be forever before I graduate, and I'm going to be so in debt, and I'm just going to be so burdened, and I'm not doing anything with my life, and meeting Rob and just the way that he lives his life is, you know, his phrase is, be a real person. Get off the couch, do something with your life. You know, yeah, Netflix is always going to be there, or you can get outside and do something, or you can build something, or you can make something, and have something in your life that lasts.
Me and Cameron had always been had a brotherly relationship. So when Rob met him for the first time and they started hanging out and stuff, he had more of an equal friendship thing. There was no, you know, helping him out to learn who he was. It just treated him like he was Cameron, and that really gave him a lot of confidence that I guess we never really realized that he needed. He walked different almost. Like it was a very subtle thing, but it was the first friendship I think that he had in college where he wasn't the little brother.
So it's winter. We've been playing inside a little bit. A couple games here and there just to keep it going, but it's been snowing and it's just been gross outside. But I'm really looking forward to that nice spring day, that first day where I can go out in the backyard and build something else in Thunderdome. And I go out and I find this rock climbing wall for $15. And I build Thunder Mountain. And I quickly realized I am out of room back here. There's nowhere else to go with this. And if you build more crap back here, it's just going to be too congested with all the people. I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be the same thing that happened with Thunder Home on the inside. It's going to get stale, and then no one's going to want to come anymore because we're doing the same stuff over and over again, and so the wheels just start turning. And I realized at that point that if we didn't expand, Thunderdome was going to die. I was like, what else could I do? I was like, this doesn't have to be expanding Thunderdome. I can make another Thunderdome anywhere. I was like, I want to go bigger. Because we had a small course here, I want to go bigger. So I start looking around. I talked to my real estate agent that was so good at finding me the first house. I'm like, I want to buy some land. This is what my requirements are. I need to be within an hour of Springfield, and I need it to be X, Y, and Z. He's like, okay, how much you want to pay? That's the problem. I have a few $1,000s, and I want to get as many acres as possible. And I didn't hear from him for a little bit. At that point, I'm thinking, if summer rolls around and I don't have anything to do, I'm going to get bored, and then Thunderdome's going to die. So that was definitely my mentality. Thunderdome will die unless you do something. I get a phone call, and he's like, hey, so this is property. It's like 3.2 acres. It's kind of a weird plot, and it's kind of in your price range. I think we could get her to go down. And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. Okay, that works. It's an hour away. Okay, yeah, buy it. What do you mean buy it? You want to go look at it? No, that's fine. Just do it. Okay, and so I made an offer on it, and we signed the stuff on there after looking at it on Google Earth. And this is not the smartest thing as far as real estate transaction. You want to go look at your stuff. But I figured as long as it wasn't perpetually on fire, as long as it was ground that was not on a steep hill, which from Google Earth looked like it wasn't, it was my place. So if I was going to do this, I needed someone to do it with me. And I called Cameron. I'm like, so I'm thinking about buying this acreage. And he had been coming building a couple things with me. We've been having a lot of fun modding Nerf guns. And I was like, man, I'm going to ask you something. And you can say no, it's cool, don't worry about it. But I'm buying this land, and I want you to step up. I think you got it in you. I want you to step up and be a big part of this. I want to teach you about building stuff, and I think you're going to have a ton of fun. What do you say? He's like, okay. And that was it. That was like the entire conversation.
I was really excited about him getting that land, and we were already spitballing a lot of ideas, like all the time about, we could build this, we could build that, we could do this. And when he finally actually had property, I was really excited to go out there.
I think the seeds had already been planted in Cameron for big things to happen, and I could see him within the past couple of months of us becoming friends and doing things together and being productive and being real people, that he was coming alive from that. So me and Ryan and a couple other people make that first drive out to Thunder Ranch. I haven't seen it. I don't know what to think about it. I don't know if this is going to be like the worst decision I've ever made. We just have no idea what we're going to find. And we get there, and I start walking through it, and I just see it. It's on the top of a hill. On the left side of it, running the entire length of the property, is just this wood line. So I see an arena there, and immediately I start seeing the vision for stuff. We walk around every inch of the property, and I see it. I'm like, I'm going to put a lake here. We're going to build towers here. There's going to be a city here. And then we stumble onto this 100-year-old well. And if you know anything about wells, they're extremely expensive. We're talking thousands of dollars. And through my work with Give a Damn, I heard a lot about well building. And so I knew immediately the price that I paid for this land has already been covered by the fact that if I ever wanted to sell it, someone doesn't have to drill a well on the property. Cameron was real busy the first day I got the property. So about a week later, loaded the car up and we headed out there together. And as soon as he saw it, I saw his eyes light up. He's just like, we get to play out here. And the first thing I said to him is, this is yours. I may have the title to it. It may be legally mine, but I want you to have ownership of this. I want you to feel like this is your baby, and I want you to have pride in it. And that, telling him that, I don't know if he'd ever experienced anything like that. I don't know if he'd ever had something of his own like that.
It really blew me away that after meeting him for that short of a period of time, that he trusted me that much and I meant that much to him. It meant a lot, and it really took me off guard.
During that spring, I was extremely busy. Give a Damn had really hit its stride, and we were doing tons of showings. We're talking 26 over the course of the spring. And it wasn't like St. Louis and Springfield showings. Most of our showings were on the East Coast, and so I would get on a plane, fly, do anywhere from 1 to 6 showings in a row. I would fly home, and then every chance I got, me, Cameron, and Shannon would go out to Thunder Ranch. And I was so stressed out, and I'm working 7 days a week, but the entire time I was looking forward to going out and building stuff at Thunder Ranch with Cameron.
I absolutely love the place. Rob's whole thing is, he built Thunderdome with a bunch of people, and it kind of evolved into all of their ideas, and he wanted Thunder Ranch to be the same deal. And really, there are no rules out there. You can kind of build what you want, do what you want. If you can think it, you can do it. Rob's not going to stop you. The kind of the phrase is, I support your right to do whatever you want out there. So it's really been more of an experience and just kind of going from, I guess, being a little bit more timid about, well, I would like to do this, but do you think it's a good idea? And what's your thoughts on this too? Hey, I'm going to go do this now. And he's okay with it. And it's definitely given me a lot of confidence in my abilities.
He wanted to see it happen. And me, Shannon, and him working together, we were an unstoppable force. We cleared the whole section of woods in just a couple days' work.
Rob's teaching style is definitely kind of show me a rough idea of what I need to do and then send me out with a huge project. And there was one point where I was asking him what to do, and he said, here's what I want done. You have the skills. Do it. Were his exact words, I think. And it's just, and he said, I'm giving you enough rope to hang yourself with. And just that he has those confidence in my abilities, and that he really wants you to kind of trial and error and learn for yourself. Yes, he could have told me what to do in some situations, or I could have figured it out myself and learned much more in the process. I think he and I learned in a very similar way, and that he and I would probably teach in a very similar way, and it's been very positive to actually see that, you know, I'm not a dumb person, and when I'm actually learning in a way and applying my knowledge in a way and doing in a way that I'm good at, I can be very successful.
And randomly, the first time Cameron came out to Thunder Ranch, he decided to bring some airsoft guns. I don't think I told him to do it. I think he just wanted to screw around with them. Immediately, it was apparent that Nerf was not going to work out there. There was too much grass. The distances were too far. We were limited to about 100 feet of what a Nerf gun could really do, and we were talking distances of 600 by 500, so just too much to work with. And so Cameron busted out his bag of airsoft guns, and we played a little bit. And we chased each other around. Shannon was being Rambo, and it was this vast experience compared to Thunderdome. Thunderdome is in your face, you're running, you're ducking behind cover, and this is, we hunted each other. And we immediately knew it would be an airsoft course and not a Nerf course. I think Thunder Ranch was just what Cameron needed. I see him evolving every day that we go out there. And I think the easiest way to put it is I think he's becoming an adult. I think he's becoming a man, and he's figuring out who he is. I see a love for life that, although he was having fun when I first met him, like, he's a completely different person. And I honestly can't wait to see the guy that he becomes.
What you do right now matters. And I think that's important for everybody in the world. Like, people just walk around. These kids that come to Rob's Thunderdome, they maybe have one chance. They come, someone doesn't love on them, someone doesn't make them feel special, they don't come back. What you do right now matters on a Tuesday in Springfield, Missouri. What you do right now matters in Africa is a plane crash, is on fire, and people need to be helped.
After being involved in Thunder Ranch, I'm definitely more confident in my abilities, and I'm definitely more confident in myself. And that if I really work at it and I really apply myself to directions that I know I'm good at, I will be successful. In the back of my mind, honestly, a lot this summer it's been, what would Rob do? Rob wouldn't be spinning gears. Rob wouldn't be whining about his situation. He would be changing his situation. If he's not being successful in a circumstance, Rob's inventing a new circumstance for himself. I haven't been this excited about what I'm doing with my life in quite a while. Probably since I was a senior in high school, ready to graduate, not knowing what was out there. And now that I do know what's out there, and I feel like I can just grab the bull by the horns and just go for it and just do it.
The thesis statement to my last year is, I want to chase my dreams. I want to chase everything that makes me come alive. And I still have a normal full-time job that's about half the year. The goal is to stop doing that. I feel like I'm wasting my time working for someone else. And so the goal is to not have to do that anymore. And how I'm going to do that is everything that I learned with the first house, I want to get another one. And I want to fix it up. And then I want to rent that one out, and that's a paycheck. And then the next year, I want to get another one. And I want to keep doing that until I can chase my dreams full time.
After falling on my face so many times, it's awesome. It's a complete 180 to actually be able to have that mindset of just, I've only got one life and I'm going to live it. I'm going to get the most out of it. I'm not going to wait for opportunities to come. I'm going to find opportunities for myself. I'm going to create them if I can't find them.
I look back on my life, and it's been a series of ups and downs, and I just can't even believe the things that have happened. And I wish I could go back and have a conversation with my 22-year-old self and just shake him and be like, there's so much more you can live for. There's a different way to live. But I don't even know if I really need to have that conversation, because I can teach that to Cameron and I can show him what I've learned. And maybe everyone who comes to Thunderdome, maybe I can change their life in a small way. And I can create the world that I want to create in my own backyard.